Hey everybody, it's Melinda, and this is Smokey. Hey y'all, it's Melinda. Hey y'all, it's Melinda and Smokey. And, stop. Okay. And if you'd sit down, it would help. Hey everybody, it's Melinda. Back a few months ago, I made those first two knockbox videos, and I had every intention of making more every couple of weeks. And then I inherited two dogs. I had every intention of doing one every couple of weeks or so. And then this happened. My father-in-law died back in November. And this is one of the dogs that we inherited when he died. And so this is Smokey. So I thought I would let y'all meet Smokey and let him help me introduce the next couple of videos. Everybody in our house, just me and my husband, and no kids, no dogs, and no dependents at all. And then all of a sudden, we had these two dogs that had to come live at our house. There was a whole lot of training to do, and this is Smokey, and he's about 14, and he's, as you can see, a very big dog, and that you might inherit, and how to maybe prepare so that when somebody does inherit your beloved pets, it's a good thing, and everybody knows what to do, and there's plenty of money left to take care of those little sweet things. One of the most important things that I could do in this video series is talk about dependence, talk about kids, talk about elderly parents, talk about pets that you might leave for somebody else to have to tend to. So what you're about to see is a video of me talking to a local attorney, Bart Adams, and we are going to talk about the importance of making sure that you name a guardian if you have minor children at home. Have a will and have a guardian named so that they don't end up in the system. So here's me talking to attorney Bart Adams. I hope you enjoy it. Hey y'all, this is Bart Adams. He is a lawyer in Ripley and works right around the corner from me up on the square. So I asked him to come over and talk to us about some things that are relevant to the knockbox, namely dependence. So Bart, thanks so much for coming over.
Absolutely, glad to be here.
All right, Bart, let's just jump right into it. Let's talk about, you want to do the easy one first? You want to talk about pets first?
We can, sure. So when you asked me the question or prepped me for the questions about pets, the first thing that came to mind is, can you leave your pet's stuff? And I was hoping that was not your question, and wasn't going to get myself in a whole lot of trouble with that. I have had people ask about leaving their pet stuff, and I don't recommend it. They're not people, unfortunately. As much as they're a member of our family, they're not. They can't inherit.
They can't inherit. Okay, that's a great question. Yeah. So much as we're joking about that, I'm sure there's plenty of people who would
absolutely
leave things to their pet, like a golf cart or car or
their house.
Okay. Okay, so they cannot inherit.
No, that's correct. They're not people. They can't inherit from you. So as much as they are members of our family, that's not possible.
Okay, good first
or
question.
Or not practical, I guess.
Okay.
So when you're talking about pets, what do you do with them? What happens to your pets when you pass away? I mean, they are members of our family a lot of times. They are, some pets have a lot of value outside of our homes. They're valuable to other people. So they're like any other piece of property. You can leave those to whoever you want to leave them to. One thing that I strongly encourage people to do is talk to who you think you're leaving those to make sure they want them. A lot of things we put a lot of worry in, and we put a lot of, I guess, pride in, but other people don't want them. They don't want our problems.
Okay, let's start there. Let's say that I have a prize dog of some kind, an expensive dog, and I leave it to my child, but my child doesn't want it. What happens?
Well, he can sell it, he can give it away, he can just minimally take care of it if that's what he chooses to do. That's why I say it's a good idea to talk to
Okay.
whoever you plan on leaving that to. And that's a good idea with anything in your will. Um, a lot of times people put a whole lot of worry and thought into things, and it's not nearly as important to everybody else as it is to you.
I'm beginning to understand that.
Yeah.
I asked my own children about some things that I value. I said, now, would y'all like to lay claim to any of it that I'm even wanting? They don't want
Right.
any of it.
And I have that happen a lot. I have people that come in, I've been practicing for a little over 20 years now, and I've had people come in and really stress about making these decisions, and they go through their will just real meticulous about who gets this and who gets that. And when something happens to these people, I have their kids come in and they sit down, and all the kids are sitting around laughing like, I don't want mama's old table lamp from the
Right.
1970s.
Right.
Mama was just as proud as could be of that thing, but none of us want that.
Right.
So make sure you talk to people. Make sure you talk to whoever it is that you're trying to leave stuff to see if they want it. And some of them do, some of them don't. Sometimes there is some real money value there as opposed to just sentimental value. Uh, I've fought over everything you can imagine in court. Uh, you name it, and we fought over it. Literally fought over used blue jeans
Oh, my
in one
goodness.
estate. So there's no telling what people want from their
Okay.
parents or loved ones.
So it's real emotional, even with just stuff, which is another video altogether.
Absolutely.
But so if the emotion is tied up in living things, it's very important to name who you want to have your pets,
Certainly.
but tell them that you've named them.
Yes, yes, absolutely. That is the key to all of it. And that is one of the first pieces of advice I give for anybody that comes in. Um, Make sure that you've talked to people. Make sure you've talked to people to express your wishes so that if something were to happen to you, Chris needs to know what you want done.
Right.
Chris needs to know what you want done with yourself, what you want done with your stuff. He needs to be able to plan on that and be able to I guess prepare himself for that.
Let's say that I'm gonna leave my koi pond or my Persian cat to a child. Can you leave them a sum of money that is dedicated to the upkeep of that pet?
Absolutely, you can leave them that chunk of money. Now, I don't know
Right.
that you can say you can only go buy cat food with it, but they've at least got the money on the front end to go
Okay.
to maintain that animal.
You can't make them do it, of course, you're dead,
That's right.
but you can leave it for them to be polite.
That's correct. Yeah, and you can. There are ways to structure it where you can force them to only spend it on that, but it doesn't become very cost effective to do that.
Okay. Any other tips on pets before we change over to children?
Not really, unfortunately. In these situations, they're very similar.
Okay, the same things happen
Yeah,
over and over again.
absolutely. You got to make sure that whoever you want to take care of your kids is able to, number one, and willing to, number two.
All right, so let's take a situation where um, your parents are 35 years old. So, I mean, odds are they're going to be fine for a long, long time.
Sure.
But you have underage children, minors. What is the simplest thing that people in that situation can do to ensure? Well, tell me one thing. What if they did die with minor children? What happens?
Well, if they don't have a
No
will,
will.
if
No
there's
will.
no will, the state of Mississippi will step in and provide a will for them, but B, those kids become wards of the state. You don't want that. Um, and truthfully, technically, they will become a ward of the state for a short period of time anyway, until somebody steps in to try to get custody or guardianship or something of that nature. Um, in your will, in anybody's will that has children, I advise them to put who they want to have their children stay with after their death. Um, that is not a final say so. That's something that I have to make clear to people is just because you say you want your sister to have your kids when you pass away doesn't necessarily mean that's the case.
Oh,
Your
really?
sister may not be fit to have those kids.
Okay.
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 So your preference has to be ratified by a chancellor. You would have your sister would have to walk into a courtroom and say, Judge, I want my sister's kids. My sister left me her kids, or at least proposed that I be the
Mm-hmm.
guardian, and I want to make that happen. So there's still some legal hoops that have to be jumped through to get there, but it's just a preference.
So when you put it in your will, that doesn't necessarily mean that's going to happen if the person is deemed by the courts to be unfit.
That's right. Yeah, yeah. I mean, a lot of times, unfortunately, you have people that later in life become drug addicts, alcoholics, mentally disabled, whatever the problem is.
Moved away.
That they've moved, and it's not a practical solution anymore. Sure, those are all options. There may be somebody else more fit, more suitable to have that child.
And the courts get to decide that.
That's right. That's right.
Okay, but having a will helps the court to know what your wishes were.
Absolutely, it does.
Okay.
Yeah, it tells the judge, well, I trust my sister to have my kids. I believe that my sister is the right person to do that. As part of that process, you're going to establish what we call a testamentary trust, so that anything you leave to a minor, you can't give it to a 12-year-old kid. It's got to be left in trust so that somebody's overseeing that money. Um,
So then you need to name somebody who would manage that trust. And does it have to be the same person that you leave the children
it absolutely does
to?
not have to be the same person.
Okay.
It's not uncommon at all that we leave one person over the kids and one person over the money. There's good and bad to that. There's a checks and balances there, so that my mother-in-law would be great to take care of my kids, but I don't know that she knows how to tell them no very often.
Oh, I see. I see.
You
Right.
know, so she's going to spend all that money on whatever they decide they want, as opposed to whoever. My father-in-law may say, well, they don't really need that baseball glove as much as I think they need it, you know.
Okay. So you need to name the person who's going to be over the money, whatever money you have, or the sale of your house and your car,
Right.
whatever, who will manage that, and then say whoever the children are going to live with. And can you say in your will, I expect the money that I leave to be used for their benefit?
Yeah, so when you create this testamentary trust, you get to make all the rules.
Okay.
The state of Mississippi provides certain rules that are there. If you want to modify those, you can. You can put as much restriction or as much freedom on the trustee as you want to have. Typically, they're allowed to spend that money for the care and maintenance of those children, so that they get to make sure they're fed, make sure they have a roof over their head, make sure they have school clothes, make sure tuition is paid if they're going to college or if they're going to a private school. All that type stuff is there. It is not there to go buy them a brand new Porsche when they turn 16 and want to start driving.
Okay. Because you've written out and said what your wishes
That's right.
are. And okay, there's as many people that are in merged families as not.
Sure.
And so there's almost always going to be step mothers, step grandmothers, lots and lots of folks involved. So what if the parents say in their will that they wish their children to be raised by this brother, and somebody else, another grandmother, says, nope, I think that they should come with me? What happens then?
Well, if one of the two natural parents is alive, preference is there.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
if I were to pass away and Amy and I were separated, then the preference is that Amy gets
The parent, the
the
biological parent.
biological parent's going to get the child.
Okay, in the case of if you and Amy were divorced and married to other people, and you passed away, and the children were living with you, would they naturally then, the stepmother, the woman that you were married to, they would go to back to their biological mother?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes. The step parent doesn't have any rights.
Okay. They become out of the picture
That's
at
correct.
that point.
As quickly as they came in, they're out.
Okay, that's good to know.
It is, and it's scary at times. I've had an estate fairly recently where a father was raising his son, his teenage boy, 13, 14 years old at the time. He and the child's stepmother had been married for 10, 11 years, so basically all of the
All
kid's
of the
life.
child's life.
And that's where he had lived. That's where the kid had lived. And when the father passed away, he had to uproot, go to a different school system, go to a different town, and move in with his mother. Now they had a good relationship. There was nothing wrong with
But
that
it could have been
relationship.
bad. It could have been bad.
But that kid's whole world has changed. That step parent had treated that child like a child, like their own biological child for 10, 11 years, and it was tough on them. But there's unfortunately just there was nothing she could do about that.
All right, so let's take it and make it simple for parents, because it's hard to add to your grocery list, Walmart, go to the bank, run by a lawyer and write a will. That's a hard thing to add to your list of things to do. So let's make it easy. Kind of give everybody the idea of what they need to come in knowing.
Yeah, so when you get ready to make these decisions, you need to know who you want to give what to. Do you want to just split everything between your three kids? They get it all equally, let them worry about, how they split it. Do you want to leave certain items to this child and certain items to this child and certain items to this child? You may want to leave your grandmother's wedding ring to your daughter, and you may want to leave your granddaddy's hunting gun to your son, or vice versa, however that works at that point in time. But those are the kind of things you need to decide. Is there anything in particular that I want to go to a set person? That's the first step. The next step is, okay, well, if I do, what are those items and who do I want them to go to? If there's nothing like that, how do I want it split? I have parents come in all the time and say, I want to leave everything to my kids equally. I have parents come in all the time that say, I don't really want to leave son number one anything. He's either got plenty and doesn't want my stuff, or I don't ever see him and he doesn't take care of me and I don't want him to have anything of mine. I want my other child or children to have everything because they're the ones that are here and taking care of me. So figure that out. Who do you want to get your stuff is the first step. The next step is who's going to be in charge. So when you pass away, your will provide an executor or an executrix. That is who is responsible for taking this paper to the lawyer, probating it, making sure it's going to flow through the court system.
Do your children have to go into foster care while that happens if you've got somebody named in your will?
Not typically.
Not typically,
Yeah,
okay.
I mean, most of the time that person's going to be willing to come pick up your kids, and there's a short window there that nobody's going to worry about it. Now, if it's 7, 8 months down the road and nobody's done anything, then DHS may get involved, or CPS, or whatever they are at the time. They may get involved and help you make those decisions or push that along. A lot of that problem starts when you start talking about enrolling kids in school.
Right.
If both parents are passed away, how's the kid going to get in school? You can't go put my child in school. I have to be the one to do that, or I have to show them some guardianship papers in order to enroll my kid.
Health cases, like
healthcare,
somebody
yes,
has to go to the
absolutely.
hospital or a doctor, how does that work?
That's right. Yeah, the
Okay.
healthcare professionals aren't going to talk to me about your kid if
Right.
I don't have some legal document doing that.
So spell that out, who you want to be in charge.
Yeah, and when I say in charge, you got to have who you want to be in charge of the will, of getting the legal stuff done, who you want to be in charge of your kids, who you prefer as a guardian, and then if you're dealing with minor children, who you want to be the trustee. Again, we started down that path a minute ago, and I said there were benefits and there's pros and cons, just like anything else. If you have separate people, you've got a checks and balances system. If you have separate people and
They don't agree.
you've got problems. Um, it makes it difficult sometimes if you have custody and Chris were to have the
money.
money power.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you and Chris don't
If
y'all
we
aren't
didn't
married, you don't
G-haul.
live there,
Mm-hmm.
you don't live together. Well, you want to go buy school clothes and Chris says, they got good clothes from the summer,
I
we're not
gotcha.
going to do that. So you kind of put yourself in a pickle. Even if y'all agree, a lot of times just the linking up and making it happen is
Right.
difficult. So you got to kind of be careful about that. We live in a small town and we don't think of things that way a lot. Being in a small town, we're 5 minutes from anybody we want to see.
Right.
So it's not a big thing.
And plus, it's a rare thing. I mean, it doesn't happen very often. Why would both parents die,
That's right.
at such a young age? But you're just warding off the horror of what could happen, just in case.
Yeah. This is all for worst case scenario.
Yes, worst case
That's
scenario.
right. Yeah, I mean, you're always dealing with, as a lawyer, unfortunately, we don't deal with the easy times, They want to
Right.
come see us when things are bad.
Okay, so if parents just can't bring themselves to go and get a legal document, can you just write it and sign it? Will it hold up in court?
There are ways. It's called a holographic will. It has to be in your handwriting, has to be signed, has to have two witnesses. You've got to jump through a whole bunch of hoops. But yes, you can have a holographic will that is completely done on your own. You just got to make sure all the hoops are jumped through.
Okay, all the hoops are jumped through, and maybe make sure you communicate with all the parties.
That's correct.
Okay, so if a child is 10 when they're orphaned, and you said you'd have to have a trust because you can't leave a 10-year-old money, right?
That's correct.
They can't
They
inherit.
can't. Yeah, they can't access it. They can inherit it. They just can't. They can't use it. They
They
can't do anything with it.
until what age?
21 is the age majority in Mississippi.
Okay, in Mississippi. So but you need to find that out in your state as well
That's
if you're
correct.
not
Yeah,
in Mississippi.
most states are 21, but not all.
Okay, awesome. Okay, I want to round it up with a kind of a weirdo question, but because I'm 57, um, I'm in the middle. I have kids. My children have minors, so I think about that. My parents are alive, so I think about that. So I'm in that middle thing.
Sure.
What if you had a parent that you were taking care of? How could that be addressed in your will?
When you have dependents, it depends on what level of a dependent they are. If they are truly 100% dependent upon you for care, then you've got to make those plans. Depending on are you legally in charge of them or are you just the one taking care of business, depends on how much preparation you need to do. If you have gone and gotten a conservatorship over your mother, father, whoever that person may be, then you have different obligations. Versus if you're the child that's here and you're taking care of mama,
Right.
you don't really have any legal obligations.
Okay.
You don't have any legal rights to do anything. You just say, look, sister, when something happens to me, you got to come take care of mama.
Okay.
As opposed to if you have been appointed by a court as a conservator, then you have some other requirements there.
Okay. And if, let's just say that your parent is in a nursing home and you are maybe paying the bills,
Mm-hmm.
taking care of their financials, it's the same rules. So like if you are doing that legally for them, put it in your will. If you're just doing it because you're the close one.
Yeah, if you're doing it because you're the one that's close and you have the power of attorney, there's nothing to lay out there.
Mm-hmm.
If you're doing it because a court has told you that you're going to do it, that's a different story.
Then you need to
Yeah.
Okay, because
So
somebody has to take that
I
over.
always recommend people to name alternates in all of these situations. When you name an executor, name an alternate. When you name a trustee, name an alternate. When you name guardians or potential guardians, name an alternate. Um, the same goes with a power of attorney. When you name somebody as your power of attorney, name an alternate. Um, because you never know.
You never know. Right,
You know,
right,
y'all may be riding down the road together when something happens.
right,
So who's the next person in line?
right. Line up 2 or 3. Yeah.
Yeah, and you can go overboard and have a list of mile long, and
Right, right. Okay. Um, I think that covers the main topics that I wanted to talk to you about today. Gosh, there's so much to think about, isn't there?
there really is. It's when you get into this, there's so many details that matter. I I really encourage people to sit down with a lawyer. You talk about people don't want to do it or don't want to spend the money to go get a will or a power of attorney or any of that. These are very important decisions, and the cost is relatively low. I mean, for a few $100s, you can get all this done. You know, it just doesn't make sense not to spend the money to do it. It takes an hour for us to sit down and go through all these scenarios and answer all these questions. What else are you doing?
Put it on your, yeah, just put it on your calendar and
Make it
get
a
it done.
priority.
Yeah.
Make it a priority. It needs to be done. You know, it's just something that people put off. We don't want to think about.
No,
We
right.
we want to think we're just immortal and don't ever have to worry about that. But it's an important decision. It needs to be done, and you need to talk to somebody about it because, despite this 30-minute conversation that you and I have had, there's so much more to it, and
And a lawyer's
everything
going to know.
and a lawyer is going to know, and your situation may be different than mine. Everybody's situation is going to be a little different. That's one thing that I run into a lot, and is, well, my sister's brother's cousin's husband had this happen, and this is the way it worked out. So I know that's the way it's going to work out here. Not necessarily, because there may just be a small twist in facts that change the whole scenario. And go talk to a lawyer. This short time, I can't really give you legal advice. This isn't legal advice. This is just a guide getting
Yes.
you in the right direction.
Yes.
You have to have the facts, you have to have the details to be able to make an educated legal decision on these things.
And a lawyer has seen so many different things that they're just going to understand the nuance of it
That's right.
that you would never even imagine
Yeah,
to
you,
think
you just
about.
things you don't think about. Lawyers that don't do this type of work, they don't think about some of these things. A lawyer's a lot like a doctor. A lot of them have specialties. A lot of them are family practice doctors. So a lot of us are a small town lawyer that do a little bit of everything, and some know different areas of the law better than others.
So, okay, let's finish up with that then. What area, if you're looking for a lawyer, you just don't know one that's across the square from you,
Sure.
how do you choose a lawyer that is going to know about families and wills?
Well, you find a lawyer and you start asking those questions. You ask them, is this type of work that you've done before? How much experience do you have in this realm? Have you ever had to litigate these things? Depending on what questions you're trying to answer, you may go talk to a lawyer that says, I've never drafted a will before. I don't know anything about it. It's hard for me to imagine being in a small town, but I guarantee you I've got friends that I went to law school with that have never written a will for anybody.
Okay,
They've
yeah.
never done a deed for anybody. They've never done some of those things.
Small town doctor, small town lawyer, same thing.
That's
You do
right.
it all.
You have to, yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
like that. I like that. Okay, Bart, thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me.
I hope that everybody will take this to heart and go out and take care of your dependents.
That's right. Take care of business. It's easy and relatively inexpensive on the front end.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.